Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, Masses32210. Today, we're going to restart an old project that's been on my channel many times. I've built this thing and rebuilt it, and seems like it just never disappears or ever got done. Well, I'm going to flip you around. We're going to show you the project, and hopefully this go around that will actually finish this thing the way I want and maybe make one hell of a toy out of it. Well, here we go. And what you're looking at is, or was known as, the hot rod golf cart. Now, most y'all might somewhat recognize it. It went through several changes over the last probably 4 years. I've had this thing for a while. It started as an electric club car chassis. I purchased it on eBay, maybe for like around $130. I went about 3 hours away down south to retrieve it. I've had a wooden body, a little wooden truck body I had on it originally. I've had different go-kart engines running the original electric axle that was on it. But as times went on, I've acquired more parts. It never ran the way I wanted it. Originally, it had a 6.5 horse Predator running the electric axle, and we done maybe 3 miles an hour with it. Somehow over that time, I went to putting a 13 horse Predator in it, and that never kind of fully got done. Different things went on. I tested it. There was different issues. The leaf springs would with the weight as it was bouncing. After the move, I went to the rental, so we were out in the farm country. Chain would skip. I think I had the wrong torque converter on it. It was just a little host of things. As you can see over the time, I've have the actual body, which I've chopped it, and I'll get into that in detail in a moment. Also, when I went to pick up the rear half of the body, the guy originally went down there for this. This was a F-150 nose. He said it was made for the club car. I don't know. I made it fit. Regardless, I think it might have actually underneath it had a Yamaha, part of a Yamaha front fiberglass nose. I had to do a lot of peeling away at extra fiberglass. There was a big 3/4 piece of plywood in the center. I'm guessing that's how they held it up. I had made my own brackets. A lot of that I never showed on video. That was because after we made the move and escaped the city, we were at the rental, and I really didn't have a decent workspace. But getting to where we're at in this video, if you notice, this rear half is nowhere near nothing to do with a club car. This was a Pulley Pro, or Pulley, I don't know how you pronounce it, but regardless, this was a riding mower rear end that I had made it up with the club car. And with the original hydrostatic rear end, it did decent. It wasn't fast at all. Just, I don't know, I liked it. I had basically took the entire front, stripped all the sheet metal off the riding mower, stripped the front end, made just different brackets that was bolted in various spots. There's like 8 different spots that it mounts and bolts to the original aluminum frame of the club car. And as you can see, goofing around, one of my buddies gave me a whole host of exhaust piping and visited the Tractor Supply. We got a little flapper up there. So instead of the exhaust just dumping underneath, I kind of routed it through this little makeshift exhaust. And like I said, it was okay for what it was. We're using bits and pieces that I had laying around. This, on the original axle, there was an issue with it, so I swapped it out for this. I think this is a Hydro Gear. I believe it's a Hydro Gear or a Tough Torque. I believe this is actually a Tough Torque rear end. It had a Hydro Gear originally. This linkage originally hooked up to the original shifter, and you can see the bar goes through, and it gives you a shifter right in the center. Now, I never had these seats mounted. These were acquired trying to remember how I acquired them. A friend of mine gave me that seat, and this one came off a John Deere mower that somebody gave me for parts. But anyway, with the hydro gear rear end, or the hydrostatic, we'll just say the hydrostatic, it was simple. Pushed it forward, the cart went forward. Brought it back to neutral, it stopped. Pulled it back, it went backwards. Now this is fine and dandy, but it lacked a couple things that I wanted, such as torque and speed. I at least wanted to do 30. Now if you notice, I took the 12-inch John Deere rims, and a friend of mine donated some ATV tires. I've had an issue with this one. It was losing air. It was leaking around the bead. He also gave me, and as you can see, I have another flat up front, but we're going to take care of all this. This is why I brought it to the new shop. I don't have lights on because still waiting on hooking up power to the shop, but I have a generator that I run power to, so I can still work out of here. But what we're going to do, I went ahead and purchased a Peerless 6-speed rear end off eBay. I think it was around, don't quote me, but around $130, give or take. Now, I wasn't sure with all the different Peerless what was good, what was desirable. So, I'd seen the brand name Peerless. I said, we'll go with it. It's got a 7-inch pulley. And if you notice, this one's got, I believe, a 3 or 4-inch pulley. So, what we're going to do is we're going to scavenge a pulley. If not off this rear end, I'll scavenge it off the hydro gear rear end, because I think I want to keep this one for another project. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with getting this thing up in the air. Not worried about chalking the front wheels because one of them's obviously flat and it's kind of stuck in the front where it's at right now. But we're going to go ahead and swap this rear end for the Peerless. We're going to hook up we're going to definitely go ahead and try to hook up the shifter so we have all 6 speeds forward. We have the reverse. And being that the brake mechanisms on these are so small, if we get the speed that I'm looking for and the torque, we're going to have to be able to stop. So what I'm thinking is I got to figure out exactly which one of these on the Peerless is going to be the drive. Is it the left side or the right side? Whichever one's going to have the real torque to it. I'm thinking we're going to come in here and actually do a disc brake setup. I have racing brakes off a cart, go-kart, and they're brand new setup. It went to a project or two, but never even used. So I figure we'll figure up a hub situation that will hold a disc. We'll make a custom caliper mount, and we'll be able to stop this thing. But there's a lot of other stuff we're going to do to this cart, but the first is first. Let's get this thing up in the air and get ready to do this rear end swap. All right. Well, I've got the first tire off. Just if anybody's never removed tires off a lawnmower rear end, usually you got a plastic cover, you'll pop it off. And I didn't put mine back on because I knew sooner or later I'm going to be removing these tires. So you're going to pull the C-clip off. You're going to have a washer on this front side, and you'll have a washer on the rear and a little spacer. And the one thing I'm glad I did was I put oil or grease or culmination so these things will slip right off. Also, there's going to be a key. Make sure you don't lose the key. And I'm glad I just thought of that. This is what the keys look like. Hope y'all are in frame. These are little square keys. And what I like to do is I'll take these in the shop, keep them with a list or with other parts. Because what I'm thinking about doing is I got with a couple of golf cart places, and I also want to thank Specialty Golf Carts. I forgot to mention them in the beginning of this video. They hooked me up with a couple of unique parts that I want for this build. But there's another golf cart company I'm working with online I don't want to mention their name just right offhand. But what I was thinking, since we have a keyway and these axles are 3/4 inch axles, I want to actually purchase a hub to actually put on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it's a keyed hub. Will slip on and allow me to use any kind of golf cart wheels on this. So that way, in the future, if I have this thing set exactly the way I want it, when it comes to taking off the wheels off the lawnmower rear end, we won't have to mess with it anymore as far as pulling the E-clip, pulling the washer, sliding the rim off, hope it's not seized. We'll actually have a 4-lug hub. It'll be 4 on 100mm bolt pattern, the same as your Hondas, most of your golf carts, 4-wheelers. So that way we just undo 4 lug nuts and pull a tire off. I have a couple ideas in mind, but I'm going to share them as we go along in this series. So far we got it up in the air on jack stands in the rear. We went ahead and pulled the rear tires. Now it's time to go ahead and undo the bracketry. Now this angle bracket I'm going to save. It connects. You got nut and bolt. You got one on each side here. They just come up through the bottom. But I can go ahead and pull the 4 here and just drop this axle. But what I'm gonna do, actually, I was thinking about go ahead and pulling this, but I think what we're gonna do is just go ahead and pull these 4, and I'll just drop the axle straight down. So that way, hopefully, when it's time to reinstall the other one, since I believe it doesn't have its brackets, we'll just reuse all this. So let me go grab some simple tools and we'll go ahead and start pulling this apart. So what we're going to do is go ahead and, oh, you know what? Before I go ahead and start cracking these loose, I forgot, right behind you guys, to lower the jack right back on the jack stand after pulling the wheel. So we'll go ahead and do that. That way it's completely stable. And we'll see. Well, I was going to grab the socket, but then I realized that they are on tight. Give them a little tap with the palm of the hand. And we're not going to pull them out all the way. We're just going to keep them just a little bit on there. There we go. So we just swap the old wrenches around, and that's it. So leave a couple threads on each side, and I'll just go ahead and do it off camera. We'll go ahead and bust loose the other side and see about go ahead and dropping this. Well, I got it unbolted, and I forgot to mention you have this bracket, which is just basically a giant L bracket with 2 bolts here and 2 that hold it on each side. But I forgot you have basically these little, let me see if I can get y'all a better angle. You got these brackets that hold it in the front. There's 2 of them. And the belt theoretically should come right off. And this belt is a Kevlar belt. And that's all for any of my machines that use any kind of belt. I don't buy the cheap ones anymore. The cheap rubberized belts, they're just not worth a damn. For as many times as you're going to replace it, you'll go through one Kevlar belt. And I'm glad my local Ace Hardware stocks them in just about every size possible. And I'm just trying to figure out how to grip this. This is a good rear end. I know it works. When I pulled it from the John Deere, if you notice, I just cut that. But what I'm going to do is I might actually reuse this. I like the threaded part. This is basically changing, let me see, was it flipped around? Actually, lost my orientation. Nope. This is the one that would set the valve that's in here to which way to open to allow it to go forward or reverse. But I'm thinking about using this one. It's got a little bit of play because the Peerless basically almost looks just like this one. Has the same style arm that sets it for what direction you're going to go, or I'm sorry, not direction, the speed from 1 to 6, and you have neutral and reverse. So we're probably going to reuse this little piece, and I still have the John Deere. I can always scavenge more rods, but this will be a piece I definitely reuse. And looks like, I want to say it's a cotter. Yep, it's a funky key, or cotter pin. I'm sorry. I'll do this off camera. I'll go ahead and pull that. And if I have to, I can always put a washer in to take up some of the slack, but we'll figure that as time goes on. So I'll do this off camera. We're going to save this piece, and this whole rear end will go on the shelf. And this is what I was talking about as far as your E-clip and your washer sit on outside of your rim. Anytime you get your rims off, trust me, take the time. Make sure you don't lose your keys. If there's rust here, take a wire brush or a wire wheel and angle grinder, clean this off real good. Apply a lot of oil or grease. Marine grease is probably going to be the best. And this is how it's normally set up. You got a washer that fits there. This, depending on what kind of rim you have, will be different sizes. Then you got another washer. Then your this right here, the overall distance from here and on the other side, the total distance is the distance here, so it makes a nice tight fit. Well, I still have to bring out this. I have the rear end. I bought it over the summer months. It's like 5 or 6 months ago, but since this is the only chance that we have to work on this, I need to bring that out here. See about if we're going to scavenge this pulley, or I have another rear end we can scavenge the pulley out of. So I have several other parts mowers. We'll scavenge a pulley and see if it'll fit onto that one. So that's going to be the next step. Well, it's starting to rain. For this clip, it's going to be the day, but we'll go ahead and start shortly, within seconds. We're to the point now that we're trying to pull off this 7-inch pulley. I'll go ahead and flip you guys around. As you can see, I had some wood under here and was supported by some 2x6s. Basically, this thing was sitting in the air. Some simple pounds from the baby sledgehammer. I got it up to that point, and I've sprayed a bunch of penetrating oil. And it's kind of stuck. So I kind of got this idea off of another local YouTuber. Actually, both ideas kind of came from different YouTubers, but one of them was a local guy not far from me. But I noticed there's 2 little holes in this pulley. So I think I'm going to take his idea. I rented this steering wheel puller, and I'm thinking that's going to be the ticket. And the only thing I found, now these bolts, I found some nuts to fit on them. So what I'm thinking about doing is just go ahead and oversizing the holes, put that through, and use the steering wheel puller to hopefully pull it on out. So we'll go ahead and get this set up, and hopefully we'll get this thing off. I guess we're at the fun part, and we'll call it that. So we got, I guess let's go ahead and insert the nuts, which normally in a steering wheel puller you don't put, you don't really put the nuts on the bolts because they really thread into the hub that's on the steering wheel itself, or if it's aftermarket, it's got an aftermarket style hub. But we're doing it with this so that way it has something to grab. That should be tight enough. This one's a hair different than what I've used before. Same basic principle. Well, how about this? I'll bring y'all guys back once I get this down to touching the dead center, and I'll grab a wrench and hopefully we'll get this thing off. Just trying to line this up, get it right in the center. Oop, wrong side. And hopefully No, she's starting to walk on me. But this is the basic principle. Just gonna scoot this thing over. Basic same principles pulling the steering wheel, except there's like a little adapter that you would put at the bottom of this big bolt that I just didn't use because it would have made it a hair too big to pull on the center of that shaft. But I'm gonna go ahead, so I don't bore y'all with this. I'll go ahead and do this off camera, and I'll bring it back hopefully once this thing is pulled. Pry bar was the answer, and very much so. Seen a lot of techniques to get these off, so I decided to try this one, and I think I'm very much so happy with this idea. It just takes, it's actually coming off. If I would just slow down a second and actually pay attention to what I'm doing, take baby steps. So I'm trying to take, I guess I'm trying to run it too fast. Modifying the tool, I guess what it's not intended really for, but same principle idea. She's almost off. I figured bring you guys along, let y'all witness this. And a couple more turns, and I know it's starting to get too easy now. Figured by now surely it would be off. The shaft must be a very tall one. First time I've ever pulled a 7-inch pulley off, and so far, unlike a lot of the other guys I've seen on YouTube, it seems like my first time has been an easy one. There we go. Just like that, it's completely off. The key's still in place. Double checking everything. Everything looks good. Now, before I do put this back on, I will take a small wire brush. I'm going to clean this off. I'll grease it before I put the new pulley on. I'll show this real quick before I hack this one up. This is the original transaxle that came on the original riding mower that powers Cousin Bubba. This is a hydro gear rear end. Had a problem when I was pulling the rear tires. An E-clip broke on the inside, so I had to take it apart. I took it apart, replaced the E-clip, and it's something to do with the neutral lockout where you can lock them out to push the mower back and forth. The rod inside that kept giving me issues where I could never get the pump to stay primed to get this thing back running. So I just gave up. I had too much time invested and too much money in the, I believe it was 40 weight oil. I just said forget it, and I had originally, then I'd come up with the idea to put the 6-speed in there. So because the hydrostatic transaxles are only good for so much. For this application, we definitely needed a 6-speed. So now I'm trying to figure out, I got to pull a 3/4 inch nut, take the fan off, then it's to get down to the pulley. So trying to figure out if we're going to, oh wow, definitely different. This is a different design than what I'm used to. So what I might do is go ahead and pull the baby air compressor in here, and we'll try to pull this nut. I'll do this off camera, try to pull this fan and see what we can do to get down to this 3-inch pulley or 4, whatever it is. Since I went ahead and pulled it off, my air gun, I used a Matco Jesse James edition that I got from one of my old neighbors. It's been phenomenal. The nut came off without no problem. So we got the fan off. You gotta excuse us, I hear a train in the background. Now, to be honest with you, I have no clue, number one, if I can get this off, and number two, well, I'm just going to sit here and pry at it and see if I can get it to come up. I might have a puller that might go on this. The biggest problem is the shaft size. This is splined and that one is keyed. That's going to be the biggest issue, which I doubt I'm going to be able to use this. But I'm going to try to go ahead and get it off anyway. Worst case, throw this in the hoard of parts. Might have to actually go visit big box store to try to obtain a pulley.